A retiree living in the United States may need well over $1 million to feel financially secure. Meanwhile, another retiree living in Mexico, Thailand, or Malaysia might be enjoying a very similar lifestyle with less than half that amount. At first glance, that doesn't seem possible. Most people assume there must be a trade-off: a smaller home, fewer conveniences, a lower standard of living. But that's not always the case. Many retirees abroad continue to live comfortably. They rent nice apartments, eat out regularly, have access to quality health care, and spend far less than they would in the United States. Which raises an interesting question. Is retirement only about how much money you have, or is it also about where you choose to live? Today, more Americans are asking that question than ever before. Instead of retiring in Florida, Arizona, or another part of the United States, many are choosing countries like Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, not because they're chasing luxury and not because they're trying to escape anything. For many, it's simply a financial decision. The cost of maintaining a comfortable lifestyle can be dramatically lower outside the United States. And once the numbers are compared side by side, it's easy to understand why this trend continues to grow.
For a long time, retirement planning was mostly about one question: how much money is enough? That question still matters, of course, but increasingly another question is becoming part of the conversation: where is the best place to retire? For a growing number of Americans, the answer is no longer somewhere inside the United States. Mexico has become one of the most popular destinations, with an estimated about 800,000 Americans now living there, including many retirees. At the same time, countries such as Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines have attracted growing numbers of Americans looking for a lower-cost lifestyle. What's interesting is that most of these retirees are not trying to live extravagant lives. They're not looking for luxury resorts or beachfront mansions. In many cases, they're simply looking for a comfortable life that puts less pressure on their finances. Social media often presents retirement abroad as a lifestyle filled with tropical beaches and endless vacations. Those experiences certainly exist, but for many retirees, the decision is much more practical than that. The goal is often straightforward: make savings last longer, reduce financial stress. Many people hear that Thailand is cheaper than the United States, but what does that actually look like in practice? To make this easier to understand, let's compare the cost of living between Chiang Mai, Thailand, and Phoenix, Arizona. As you can see on the screen, the items are listed on the left, and the cost differences between the two cities are shown on the right. Let's start with the first item. A meal at an inexpensive restaurant costs around $20 in Phoenix. In Chiang Mai, the same meal costs only $1.97, which is about 90.1% lower. Moving to the next item, a meal for two in a mid-range restaurant, including 3 courses, but excluding drinks, costs around $90 in Phoenix. In Chiang Mai, it costs only $19.73, which is approximately 78.1% lower. And as you go through the rest of the list, the pattern is pretty clear. Many everyday goods and services are significantly cheaper in Chiang Mai. Let's scroll further down the page. Under the Utilities section, the cost of basic utilities for an 85-square-meter apartment, including electricity, heating, cooling, water, and garbage collection, is around $248.88 per month in Phoenix. In Chiang Mai, the same utilities cost about $63.01, which is roughly 74.7% lower. Of course, one of the biggest expenses in retirement is usually housing. Under the Rent per Month section, a one-bedroom apartment in the city center costs around $1,790 in Phoenix. In Chiang Mai, a similar apartment costs about $499.90, which is approximately 72.1% lower. And this is exactly why so many retirees and FIRE-minded individuals pay close attention to location.
When major expenses such as housing, utilities, dining, and everyday living costs are dramatically lower, the amount of money needed to support retirement can be much lower as well. A big part of this trend comes down to a simple reality. Retirement in the United States has become expensive. For decades, many people assumed that if they worked hard, saved consistently, and invested for the long term, retirement would eventually take care of itself. In many cases, that's still true. The challenge is that the number required to retire comfortably has continued to rise. Housing costs are higher than they were a generation ago. Healthcare remains one of the biggest concerns for retirees. Insurance, property taxes, and everyday expenses have all increased over time. As a result, many people now view $1 million as a starting point rather than a finish line. Some aim for $1.2 million. Others target $1.5 million or even more. Not because they want an extravagant lifestyle, they simply want enough income to cover normal living expenses without constantly worrying about money. This is where the math becomes interesting. A portfolio of around $1.2 million can potentially support roughly $48,000 to $50,000 in annual spending using a conservative 4% withdrawal strategy. For many Americans, that represents a fairly typical middle-class retirement, nothing extreme: a comfortable home, regular grocery shopping, occasional travel, dining out from time to time, a few hobbies, the ability to handle unexpected expenses. The problem is that once annual spending reaches $50,000 or more, the required retirement portfolio becomes quite large. And for people who are still working toward financial independence, that can add many additional years of saving and investing. This is exactly why more attention is being given to a question that wasn't discussed very much in the past. Instead of asking how to accumulate a bigger retirement portfolio, some people are asking whether the same lifestyle could simply cost less somewhere else.
This is where Mexico enters the conversation. For many Americans, Mexico isn't just a vacation destination anymore. It's becoming a retirement destination. And the main reason is surprisingly simple. The cost of living is significantly lower. Consider a retiree spending around $50,000 per year in the United States. That budget might provide a comfortable middle-class lifestyle in many parts of the country. Now, compare that to Mexico. In many Mexican cities, a similar quality of life can often be maintained around $18,000 per year. The exact number will vary depending on lifestyle and location, of course, but the difference is still substantial. Housing is often less expensive. Dining out tends to cost less. Transportation costs can be lower. Many everyday services are more affordable as well. The result is that retirement savings can stretch much further. And that's where the retirement math starts to change. If a person needs approximately $50,000 per year in retirement spending, they may need a portfolio of around $1.2 million to feel comfortable. But if annual spending drops closer to $18,000, the required portfolio becomes dramatically smaller. Instead of needing well over $1 million, a retirement portfolio of roughly $450,000 may be enough to support a similar lifestyle. That's a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars. For someone pursuing financial independence, that difference can represent years of additional work, or years gained back. This doesn't mean Mexico is the right choice for everyone. Family, culture, language, healthcare preferences, and personal circumstances all matter. But from a purely financial perspective, it's easy to understand why so many retirees are at least considering the option. The lifestyle may not look very different. The cost of supporting it often does. Mexico tends to get most of the attention, but it isn't the only country attracting American retirees. Across Southeast Asia, several countries have become popular for many of the same reasons. Thailand is one of the best-known examples. For years, retirees have been drawn to its warm climate, established expat communities, affordable health care, and relatively low cost of living. A comfortable lifestyle can often be maintained around $15,000 per year, depending on location and personal spending habits. Using that level of spending, the retirement portfolio required can be dramatically lower than what many Americans expect. In some cases, around $375,000 may be enough to support that lifestyle. Vietnam has also become increasingly popular. The country offers affordable living costs, modern cities, excellent food, and a rapidly growing economy. For retirees looking for an active urban lifestyle without the price tag of many American cities, Vietnam can be an attractive option. Annual expenses around $20,000 are often enough for a comfortable retirement, meaning the required portfolio can be far smaller than a traditional U.S. retirement target. Malaysia sits somewhere in the middle. It combines relatively affordable living costs with modern infrastructure, good health care, and widespread English usage in many areas. For retirees who want a balance between convenience and affordability, Malaysia often appears on the shortlist. A lifestyle that might require $50,000 in the United States can often be maintained around $18,000 per year. That puts the required retirement portfolio closer to $450,000 rather than well over $1 million. Of course, these numbers are averages, not guarantees. Some retirees spend far more, others spend less, but the broader point remains the same. In many parts of the world, the cost of maintaining a comfortable lifestyle is significantly lower than it is in the United States, and that changes the entire retirement equation. I created a spreadsheet comparing the cost of living in different countries against the United States, along with estimated FIRE numbers based on a 4% annual withdrawal rate. If you'd like to receive a copy by email, you can subscribe to my free newsletter using the link above, and I'll send the file directly to your inbox.
When people talk about retiring abroad, the conversation usually focuses on money, and that's understandable. The financial benefits are often what attract people in the first place. But after speaking with retirees and reading their experiences, it's clear that lower living costs are only part of the story. Many people discover that life simply feels different. Without the pressure of a high monthly budget, retirement can feel less stressful. There may be less concern about market fluctuations, less worry about whether a portfolio can support another decade or two of expenses. A lower-cost lifestyle can create a larger margin for error. That alone can provide a sense of security that many retirees value. At the same time, retiring abroad is not a perfect solution. There are trade-offs. Living far from family can be difficult. Language barriers can create everyday challenges. Healthcare systems work differently from country to country. Building a new social circle takes time, and sometimes people discover that the lifestyle they imagined is different from the reality of living there full-time. This is one reason some retirees eventually return to the United States after a few years abroad, not because they failed, not because the numbers were wrong, but because retirement is about more than finances. It's also about community, relationships, familiarity, and feeling at home. The financial advantages can be significant. The personal side of the decision is often more complicated. That's why retiring abroad works very well for some people and not for others. Like most things in life, there are benefits and trade-offs on both sides.
This is where the conversation connects directly to FIRE. One of the biggest misconceptions about financial independence is that it requires an enormous amount of money. People often assume that the goal is to build the largest portfolio possible. In reality, financial independence is usually a combination of two things: how much money has been saved and how much money is needed to live. Most people focus heavily on the first part. Far fewer pay attention to the second. But reducing expenses can be just as powerful as increasing investments. A person who needs $50,000 per year will need a very different retirement portfolio than someone who only needs $18,000 or $20,000. That's why location can have such a dramatic impact on a FIRE plan. Lower annual expenses generally mean a lower FIRE number, and a lower FIRE number can mean reaching financial independence much sooner. This doesn't mean everyone should move abroad. For many people, staying close to family and friends is worth every extra dollar. But it does highlight an important idea. Financial freedom is not always about accumulating more. Sometimes it's about needing less. And for a growing number of Americans, retiring abroad is simply one way of making that equation work.
Of course, if retirement in the United States is financially possible, that will probably remain the best option for many people. Family members are nearby, friends are nearby. Everything feels familiar. The challenge is that building a retirement portfolio of $1 million or more can take a very long time. And for many people, those extra years come with a cost. A job provides income, but it also limits freedom. Schedules are fixed, time belongs to someone else, managers make many of the decisions. That's why some people choose a different path, not because they want luxury, not because they dislike the United States, but because retiring abroad may allow them to achieve financial independence sooner. In the end, every retirement plan involves trade-offs. The goal isn't to find the perfect country, it's to find the lifestyle that gives you the most freedom and the least stress.